And Roger Daltrey is with us this morning. Welcome, Roger.
Good to be here.
The Mr. Kibblewhite you referred to in the title was your grammar school headmaster who said to you what?
Well, it was either the last day of my 14th year or my 15th birthday. I can't quite remember which. But he expelled me from the school after giving me 6 strokes of the cane for being a rather naughty boy. And as I was leaving his office, he held the door open for me. And as I walked past him, he said, "You'll never make anything of your life, Daltrey." You know, and immediately with the arrogance and, you know, the anger and all that was going through me of youth, I thought, well, I'll show you. Thanks a lot, Mr. Kibblewhite.
Have you ever seen him since?
No, but I've had kind of a second kind of contact with his family, because I really mean it today as a thank you, because I do wonder if he hadn't have said that to me, which way my life would have gone.
Because it resonated with you. It stuck.
Oh yeah, I mean it was it was the
it was the fuel,
kick in the butt that I needed.
Yeah.
Not before a stint, though, as a sheet metal worker, and you, after getting kicked out of school. I mean, how did that trajectory lead you to a band?
Well, I was already in a band. One of the reasons I got kicked out of school is that I was already in a band, and that's all I wanted to do. I mean, school seemed like a punishment. The band seemed like fun.
Yeah.
So that was easy. You know, in those days, it's very hard to get Americans to kind of understand the world that we grew up in England, post-war England.
Yes.
Because everything had been levelled.
It was a very bleak world.
I was born in a V1 raid. My mum, you know, she started labour on the 29th of February, so she was determined I was not going to be a leap year baby, even though I would now have been 18 years old. kind of wonderful, you know. So she hung on through this air raid, and where the V1s were coming down, and I was born on March the 1st. Well done, Mum.
You know, you write in the book, and it was really interesting to me to sort of see the little pieces of The Who come together, and the way that you all, I think you refer to it as like a jigsaw puzzle, and figuring it out. How simple or how difficult was it to find all the pieces, or did you just know each time?
Well, this is the thing about being the singer in a band. You never actually see much of the rest of the group.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of facing front, playing to the crowd that way, and they're kind of there.
Yeah.
But what you do because of that position is you feel. So it always became obvious when someone had the same kind of biorhythm, and by the time Keith Moon joined, who was the last piece of the jigsaw, he was like the key in the ignition of the engine, and all of a sudden, what then becomes the algorithm, where all our biorhythms are the same. The algorithm of The Who fired up for the first time, and it was off. I mean, immediately, something big happened. You know?
You were always a dynamic live band, but you write that actually Pete Townshend's guitar smashing, which became early on was one of the trademarks of the band, actually started by accident.
Yeah, accident and a temper. And we were playing a club, and it had a very low ceiling, and he used to have this thing about playing his guitar that way, across kind of that way.
Yeah.
At times, he used to bring it up like that. And I think he may have jumped a little bit, and it was very low ceiling, and the neck of the guitar just hit the ceiling and broke, which made Townshend completely furious. And this was a Rickenbacker, which in those days, you know, the equivalent today would probably be $10,000. Yeah. Relevant to where we were in financial straits. And he proceeded to, it could have been repaired, not after he'd finished with it.
What did you think as he was smashing the guitar?
Oh, I thought of what I would have done for that guitar 4 years earlier when I was making my own guitars through lack of money.
Yeah.
But equally, we saw the effect it had on the audience. They went crazy, and we thought, well, this might be another key in the door to success.
Yeah.
And build that into the budget of
Yeah, it wasn't the key in the door to making any money.
Right.
But we ran up some great debts.
I tell you what is so interesting about your story is what was not part of your life. You've been with your wife for, you say, 50 years. How did you sort of withstand all of that was being, I'm sure, thrown at you?
It wasn't easy, but I got very lucky that I married, I met a woman, Heather, my wife, and she understood our business. She'd been in the business, she'd been on Broadway, and she was a model. And we wanted to have children, and so we wanted to get married. And I said, but you know, the business I'm in is kind of very transient, there's always temptation, it's never going to be easy, and I can't promise you I'll ever be one of those, you know, loyal, that kind of loyal husband. I'm in a rock and roll band, and we're away for months on end, and I'm very young, and full of testosterone.
You had a very clear perspective on what...
But and she accepted it, and she and to her credit, she accepted it, and it was never an issue in our marriage. We love each other. I always loathed the term that the press put on the girls that hung around bands in those days as groupies.
Right.
I know it was a nice print name, but they were all friends. They were really wonderful people, and with the ones that are still around, we're still friends to this day.
You write about a lot of them, about that in the book, and
That's
it's
right.
interesting to see some of it. You also talk about Woodstock, which I think for most of us, we think
Yes.
everyone loved, everyone who was a part of it. It was the greatest thing out there, and the look on your face says everything. Not if you were actually playing in it.
Well, it was to say the least interesting.
Yeah.
You know, it's the first time I've really come in contact with fake news, believe it or not, because we were due to play the Saturday night, and we were watching the TV on the Friday, which was the first day of the festival. And if you'd have watched the news well, I was in Connecticut and New York. I don't know about the rest of the country, but I mean, it was being declared a disaster area. Apparently, the governor had closed all the roads.
Right.
No one was allowed in.
Right.
All the bands were having to fly in by helicopter. So there was this whole myth being kind of pumped out by the news that was actually not true. No. Because we were wondering how we were going to get in the next day. We just drove there in a Volkswagen.
You actually went in, you actually drove to Woodstock in your in-laws VW Beetle.
Yeah, with the mother and father-in-law and Heather and me in the back. We drove to Woodstock in this little red Volkswagen, and every time we came to a roadblock, we just drove around it, and
yeah,
you know, it was kind of weird. And there were no helicopters taking us in and out. We went in and out in a Hertz station wagon.
Right. And you did a lot of waiting around, which you're not particularly fond of.
Well, you know, when you're due to go on at 9 o'clock at night, being in our business, you get used to a bit like an athlete, where you're ready to run a race.
Yeah.
And your whole energy of the day is focused to be at its height at that time of day.
Yeah.
And we were due to go on at 9 o'clock at night. We ended up going on at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Needless to say, there was not much to eat on the site. There was very little to drink that hadn't been doctored in some kind of
And you got some tea that was actually doctored.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what it was that I had, but I was in a very funny
state of mind.
What was the crowd like at 5 o'clock in the morning?
Alive. They
were up.
I mean, it was incredible. I mean, and I have to say that everybody said, you know, the bands and the Who and all those people, the stars of Woodstock. That's not true. The audience, the people in the crowd, they were the stars of Woodstock.
Let's talk about the audience that you now play to. You still have an incredible fandom out there. I noticed something you and I have in common. I opened the 1984 Olympics. You closed the 2012 Olympics. They aren't necessarily Who fans, the Who fans. What's the difference in playing to a crowd like that?
Well, for me, no difference whatsoever.
None?
No, I don't really care who I play to. I don't care if it's one person. 100,000, 200,000, 2 million, or whatever. I only ever sing to you, and it's no different if there's 500,000 of you, because it's all you. So I try not to sing at people, but to them.
Wow.
I want to ask you a question about sort of the arc of this band, because I mean, you started as all sort of 60s rock and roll bands did, as a singles band. But with Tommy, you really became kind of an album band. And you said you thought Tommy kind of lifted you as a performer to a different level?
Yeah, and Tommy, that came from our manager, Kit Lambert, who was son of a very famous English composer and conductor, Constant Lambert. And he always felt that the 3-minute pop song could be much more important. And Kit was kind of schooled in grand opera and all that. Yeah. And he thought, well, it's time for a rock opera. And he guided the music that we were making into becoming Tommy. Kind of wrote the book, the early book. And for a singer, it was a joy to not have to just do individual songs, but try and make these individual songs into something that's got more going on in it. And as it was about a singular character, it helped me grow as a singer tremendously.
What changed then, do you think?
Everything. I mean, the band grew musically in the next 3 years, probably the fastest we'd done our whole career. We were freed of so many restrictions. The 3-minute pop song thing kind of was a big responsibility, because you're always trying to get that hit. All of a sudden we were free of that.
Yeah. And what about you?
None of the hits didn't matter anymore. This is an opera.
Yeah.
Right.
Stories make.
And what about you as a singer? Because it seems like you leapt to another level there too. Yeah,
but I mean, again, that's because I was kind of getting into this character of going the Tommy character, being deaf, dumb, and blind, imagining life through just vibration, and trying to understand and empathise with the words in a way that the character would build, and it gave my voice a strength that it hadn't had previously. I had it in the blues voice. I had kind of struggled with the singles when we had I'm a Boy and Happy Jack, pictures of Lily, which were kind of more internally Pete Townshend, and I'd struggled to find that voice. But listening back to them, I think it works, because I'm kind of haunted.
One last thing before we let you go, which I have to ask you about, because you write about this in the book. You and Pete Townshend, you've been together for whatever, 50-odd years now.
60.
Longer than the wife.
Longer than the marriage.
Longer than the marriage.
And you, as you describe it, as like a brotherhood. But there was a moment it came to blows back, I think, in the 70s, and he actually swung a guitar at you?
Yeah, he was drunk. He was drunk. And yeah, he was drunk, and I'd been on probation. I got thrown out of the group in the 60s for fighting. I used to fight quite a lot. And one of the reasons I went back, there's 2 reasons. I went back, but I promised not to fight anymore. Yeah. And they promised not to take drugs before they went on stage anymore. Yeah.
Wow.
So that was the agreement, and we lived up to it for about 7 years. And then when we got to 1973, we were rehearsing Quadrophenia, and there were a camera crew supposed to be filming the rehearsal. Yeah. And they were sitting on their camera boxes. They didn't film a foot of this whole rehearsal. And so I said, when are you going to start filming, guys? This is a hard piece of work to sing, and I'm not doing it twice. Yeah. And it was towards the end anyway. By this time, Pete, who'd now drunk about at least 1 bottle of brandy, maybe a bottle and a half. Yeah.
Wow.
Started to have a go at me. You'll do as you're told. And he started spitting at me. And with this, the road crew, who kind of knew what my red mist was like, instead of kind of saying, Pete, this is all right, Pete, they jump on me and hold me. It's like with both arms. And then with that, Pete starts prodding me, and he says, well, let him go, I'll kill him. And he used a few expletives attached to that,
Yeah.
which weren't very complimentary. Anyway, they let me go. He swung a guitar at me, which glanced off my shoulder. And then he started throwing punches, and bless him, Pete he was drunk. Even when he's sober, he's not a fighter.
And you respond.
You grew up a fighter.
Yeah.
No. And he threw a punch which kind of... It went past my left ear again, and it presented his prominent face to me, and I just hit him, and he kind of left the floor and went bang, and I thought I killed him. I
did.
Oh my God.
And it ends up with me holding his hand, patting his hand, crying because I thought I killed him.
This really does sound like your childhood story, that it was the reverse role.
I end up with myself and our manager and Pete out on a stretcher, with me holding Pete's hand in the ambulance.
You still feel guilty about that?
I wish I hadn't have hit him, but there was no choice. Really. I mean, you know, if that guitar had hit me, it might have killed me.
Mm-hmm. Are the Who done? Are you?
No. No, we'll be done when we can't do it. We can't do it as it needs to be done anymore. Mm-hmm. And there's still avenues to explore. We've got ideas for maybe something next year. It can't obviously go on for long, but there's something about the Who that I'm really proud of. There's a energy in the Who that we've never cheated, and if that's the thing that if I ever feel isn't there in me anymore, because I can't speak for Pete, but if it isn't in me as the singer to deliver those songs and give them that energy that is true rock, not rock and roll. Right. Rock and roll is music to make love to. The music of the Who is music to fight to, and it's really very different.
I love it.
It's a different energy.
No one could have said it better.
So
All right, Roger Daltrey, the book is. Thanks a lot, Mr. Kibblewhite. Good luck with it, and thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.